Hey there! Welcome to the What's Your Thing podcast, where we're all about great conversations with interesting people.
That's right. I'm Brennan.
And I'm Caitlin.
There's something awesome about every person, a thing that makes them truly unique.
We want to know what it is about everyone, so we're asking,
What's your thing?
All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in again to the What's Your Thing podcast. I am here with Nick Vernon. Brennan is off this week. He is on vacation. So let me give you a little bit of info on Nick. Nick, thank you for being here tonight. How are you?
Oh, just so happy I was able to clear my not busy schedule to do this with you.
So Nick Vernon, the club owner, co-owner, and runs a comedy house. And you also tour. You have a one-man show that you've toured all over Canada in 8 different countries, correct?
That is correct. We're hoping to make it 12 in 2024. It all depends on if they want a guy from Metcalfe yelling at them at their local bar in English.
I mean, it's probably yes. I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy. I know you from back in the day when you were an actor in front of the camera, and I've been to your club and I've seen your stand-up. I think it's hilarious. So I would love it's obvious you've had a career in media. I would love if you just give us just a general just jump into, you said you're from Metcalfe, you got into movies. Now you're touring comic, plus you own a comedy club. So just to generalize, like sequence of events, how did we get here?
So I actually was in stand-up for many years before I got into acting. Acting was a gateway drug from comedy.
Nice.
Comedy started by a bet from one of my now competitors. I used to be a bartender at a rival comedy club. And the owner just bet me $100 that I couldn't make people laugh. And I honestly had absolutely zero interest in doing comedy before I started. And then I caught what they call is the bug, where you go up and you enjoy it and you feel that feeling that people describe. It's like, when like people do heroin and then they keep doing heroin because they want to feel like they did the first time they did heroin. I mean, I've never done it, so I can't confirm or deny that that's the feeling, but yeah. So comedy happened first, mostly just very recreationally. I liked the idea of getting drink tickets to insult people. That was like a huge plus for
Yeah.
me. And then I sort of realized that, yes, I do not want to do construction or bartend anymore. I would like to kind of just be a professional mouth clown for the rest of my life. And that's where the whole production angle of things came. And I find that myself and a lot of different comics are mercenaries for hire, jacks of all trades. Like, we are comics, we are actors, we are writers, we are MCs of events, anything where you just need somebody to either be on camera or talk into a microphone. It's a very wide skill set that I find not a lot of people are like, outside of comedy, not a lot of people are willing to be on camera, be speaking into a microphone, because everybody has anxiety now and nobody wants to talk in front of people.
Yeah. I think it's pretty intimidating to just go out there and like lay your heart out there and have the immediate feedback of whether or not people think you're funny. I think you're very brave for doing that. I don't know if I could do that myself.
I don't know if it's a thing of bravery. I find it's like it's an extrovert thing, obviously, but I find like some of the funniest people that I know are not comedians. But there is just a difference between just being funny when we're just sitting around having a couple bevies talking about our day, and being funny when people are expecting you to be funny. So it's
Do you
every
get
like,
that? Oh, you're a comic. Tell me a joke.
of course, I hate those people.
Yeah.
I always try and find out what they do, and then I hope that it's something that I can also ask. Oh, you're an orthodontist? Fix the gap in my teeth. Like,
Nice.
let's go, buckaroo. I don't get it as much anymore. My new favorite one that I get, and this is so funny, um, if I'm hosting a show, so I end up filling in at the like I don't really book myself at Laugh Lounge. I have to be there anyway, but if somebody cancels, luckily I can just fill in. So a lot of time I end up filling in as the MC of the show. And the amount of times that people come up to me after the show and they're like, "Oh my God, that was so great. You should really try comedy." And I'm just like, did you what did you think I was just doing up there, bro? Like that one thing I won't understand. I don't understand how people just think if you're the host of the show that you're just a guy and you're not actually part of it. They're like, "Man, you should really do comedy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been doing it for like 10 years, dude. Like what do I
Wow.
got to prove to you right now?"
How have things changed since you first started stand up? And what are the challenges of being a stand up comedian right now?
So that is honestly a two-part answer. Um, I find that it is a matter of adjusting to the times and also partly growth as well too. Um, it has changed in a growth perspective, looking back at some of the material that I would do when I was younger in comedy, that now that I'm a little bit more seasoned and have just like a better scope on like life and being a performer, you look back and you're like, that's so hacky that I was doing that. That's such low hanging fruit. Why was I doing that? Obviously, it's a part of your growth, right? So in that sense, a lot has changed. But as far as the woke mob and cancel culture, and you see, um, comics dropping left, right, and center. Um, it honestly, it's so hard to answer that question because I find like a lot of people, like a lot of comics get canceled, but I find a lot of comics get canceled because they like jerked off in front of somebody or they're like a creep or they did something extracurricular outside of comedy that got them in trouble. I haven't seen as many comics getting canceled for things that they say as opposed to things that they do. Um and I will die on this hill. I do think any topic can be funny. I really do. As long as it is delivered respectfully and professionally, and you're not saying anything just like hateful or just blatantly ignorant, I do believe any topic can be funny. Um, there is there is a matter. I do subscribe to yes, there is something about things being too soon. I know there's tons of comics that are like, wow, I'm a comedian. I have a duty to speak recklessly. I have to give my opinions on the Israel-Palestine conflict, or I need to talk about when it was really popping. Like I need to talk about Me Too, or I need like there's so many different things. And again, I do think you you can talk about any topic. You can make anything funny. Um, but I think there's like a time and a place.
So, talking about anything can be funny. Do you have like an opinion on whether society should have like an objectively funny or subjectively funny view of comedy? Like, is there things that we should just kind of accept, and then are there things that are just like more subjective? But like, should there be like a baseline of this is funny and this isn't?
No, because I think that humor and stand-up content brings out different topics bring out different emotions in different people. So I don't think we should go back to medieval times and like open up like a scroll being like, this is what we're allowed to talk about. This is not what we're allowed to talk about. Um, so for example, we at Laugh Lounge went almost 2 years without getting a single one-star review. And we got one-star review from a woman who was very upset with some of the content that some of the comedians were discussing the night that she came. Count on, not to sound stereotypical, just count on a white woman with a Karen haircut to be upset on other people's behalf. That's just the way of the world. Um, But what I found funny about her complaint is there was an ethnic comic making ethnic jokes. Um, and she loved all of the ethnic jokes. But as soon as he made a joke that some would consider derogatory towards women, she was up in arms about it. So it was so interesting seeing her laugh at a joke because I was at the bar serving her and I could see her losing her mind laughing over these ethnic jokes that maybe some people in the crowd were like, that's not my thing. That's like a little bit too much. But as soon as he started speaking, he basically, it was just complaining about his wife and just like light misogyny, which has been done in comedy forever. Not saying it's not hacky, but it's just, it is what it is. Was super offended. So when it comes to the viewer, can you get upset at one topic, one taboo topic, but allowing another taboo topic to go unpunished or unscathed? So to like that's a debate that I have with comics and just, you know, like my peers often is, if is it that black and white? Is it either anything goes or you're offended by everything? Where do we draw the line in the sand? And I don't think that has really been found yet. So when you say how is comedy different? It's different now because I don't think anybody knows where the line is, because some comics are way better at pushing the envelope and kind of teetering over that line than others, myself included. I like to get a rise out of people. I like to kind of walk on that line. I'm not going to say anything super fucked up where people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. But I will say something where you're going to be like, you might groan, you might
Mm.
roll your eyes, you might say, I don't like him. I'm probably never going to see you again. So that doesn't really matter, you know?
Well, maybe not since you're on tour so much. So how do you prepare for a tour that takes you across Canada, which is the largest country in the world, and then to 8 different countries? Like, are you do you have an overarching show and then do you write geographical jokes, or how would you prepare for a tour with just so many different places and so many different people?
Um, so the preparation is honestly just booking. Mm, a lot of comics have agents that do stuff like this, and then they just kind of like show up. Um, I do mostly everything myself. Just kind of like being my own admin has just always been one of my more strong suits. And I think that is an asset to have in comedy is um, being able to navigate the production side, not just the performing side. So to me, it is booking multiple shows in a row in all these different places, alleviating as many costs as you can, and just maximizing your because at the same time, this is a fun job, but it is still a job. They're long gone are the days where, oh, I don't really care if I make money. I'll just get my name out there and hopefully they'll have me back. Now that we've gotten our reps in, this is a job, this is how we pay our bills. So I would say, how do you like preparing for a tour? In stand up, we're very lucky that while a lot of comics see comedy as a dog eat dog world and it's me against you and I want that spot that you have, um I took a different route and surrounded myself with a lot of like-minded comics that we have a lot of mutual respect for each other, and we live all over the country. I truly believe that per capita, comic for comic, I find Canadian comics are monumentally stronger than American comics. I know, like, you see a lot of like, this is just going to sound like biased Canadian, but I've done shows in the States, and like the average comic, at least where I've been, was painful to watch. And granted, like there's now everybody, it's popular to be a comedian. Everybody wants to be a comedian now. You I have female comic friends that will go on Tinder and a guy will list comedian in his bio because he did one open mic at Yuck Yucks. Now you're a comedian, you know? Um, But no, I'm very lucky to have a lot of people in a lot of different places. And when you build a team, it's so much easier to get around the country doing stand up when they're in your town, you have work, you have stage time for them, and they return the favor when you go to their side of the pond as well too. So I find that that makes the preparation part of it a lot easier. Um, the only preparation performance wise that I do is what you say. Like, is there a certain thing that you say when you go here? And that is very, very true, especially for myself, where my act, like my one-man show, internationally wanted, locally hated, that is mostly just crowd work. So there's very few jokes that are in that. It's a lot of audience interaction. And that came about from me going to Europe. When I'm performing here, I am performing for fake Barbie dolls and failed hockey players. That is like the majority of the people that I perform with. But when I walk into an international bar in Budapest and I have 60 people in the audience across 12 different nationalities, why would I do my jokes when I have so many? I'm a social butterfly. I want to know about these people. And then that's where kind of like that sort of act goes. So when I'm in Canada, I have my local references. I know what to say to a bunch of drunk farmers from Saskatchewan. I know what to say to all the barflies that hang out in Halifax. City, country, it's all the same. Europe is a little bit different though. I find because it's such an international community and it's just a revolving door of tourists, expats, locals trying to learn English as a second language. It's much more enjoyable, I've noticed, for them audience wise, feeling a part of the show and like kind of just learning about their fellow man, if you will.
So after being so involved in stand-up comedy for a decade, what are your predictions about where stand-up is going in the future? Will comics have to have a social media present? Is that going to affect potential bookings or bigger bookings? Or, is it, hybrid now? We need to be looking at, I'm a stand-up comedian, but I need a TikTok or I move into acting. So what are your predictions about stand-up comedy for the next 10, 20 years?
Yeah, sadly, I do think that a social media presence is almost, um, I don't want to say mandatory, but it is really going to open a lot of doors for you. There are a lot of comedians that have not been in stand up very long and made, a couple funny 20-second videos on TikTok during COVID and got such a massive following. And now really strong comics that have put in a lot of work and a lot of years and so many reps and so many shows that are being overlooked by bookers for these TikTok, YouTube, social media stars where yes, their name is going to sell out a venue and they're going to make their money. But I would love to see them headline a show on a rowdy night in Cornwall or something, like, to make an example, and see how they do. There's so many comics in Canada that are so good that are all working on getting their visas to going to the States. And when they finally, get their legs there and they finally have their first meeting with an agent, it's so discouraging for like the first question that an agent asks is, how many followers on Instagram do you have? And it's like, obviously we know how to play the game, but like that must be, you couldn't pay me to live in the States. I am a Canadian performer. I have no problem going there, but I don't my I have no desire to go to the States. And that would be so insulting if the first question that I was asked, it's almost insinuating like, so what can you do for me? Like, it's like, well, why are we even having this meeting right now? You know what I mean? Like, I already know what I bring to the table as an artist. So what are you going to do to help me get the word out as an agent? So, yeah, social media is huge. But not as huge as understanding the business. I think just understanding, having good working relationships with bookers, producers, but to me, also building a following. There are I'll make an example. If you ask my parents who their favorite comic is, they don't say me. They say a gentleman by the name of Jeff Leeson. Now, Jeff, I would say, is not talked about near as much as he should in the comedy community. This is a guy who isn't jumping around, oh hey, look at me, I'm doing this festival and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, is just quietly booked, let's say 51 out of 52 weeks a year, and is just covering the planet from top to bottom. But why is nobody talking more about this guy who can walk into anywhere? It doesn't need to be a comedy club or a theater. This guy could walk into a curling club. I've seen comics that nobody's talk about do what we're doing right now. Go on a Zoom comedy show and you can see people slapping their knees, peeing their pants, watching somebody on Zoom. It's crazy. Um, it's crazy seeing how blinded we are thinking that, oh, I need to be famous on social media before I can make a career doing this. And the best advice that I was ever given when I was very, very young in comedy, the best advice I was ever given was by Dave Merhej, one of Canada's best Juno winning comedian. I was kind of picking his brain. I was like, I don't really feel like I'm getting anywhere. Like, what do I do? How do I make this work? And the best advice, and I preach this advice to everybody else, you need, if you're in comedy, very quickly, when you reach a pro level, you need to decide what you want out of comedy. What does your career look like to you? And as soon as he told me that, I had such a clearer picture once I applied that mentality. The difference in where I was a year from that, 3 years from that, all the way to now. I knew that I always wanted to do comedy, but you have so many people that think the be all end all is, well, I need to be on Netflix. I need to have done every single festival. I need to live in New York. I need to be the most famous person in the world. That does not appeal to me at all. I would like to be able to do multiple tours a year. I'm a traveler. I want to use comedy to see the world. To me, like doing a world tour of like 50 cities across the world is much more impressive than a Netflix special because you met the right producer and you had a niche market that people wanted to go on. It makes me so sad because there are so many really, really good comics that are just brutalizing their mental health, comparing themselves to these TikTok stars and people that are getting more opportunities than them because they fit a certain niche or whatever's hip and whatever people are looking for. And I think it's just a sense of you didn't look yourself in the mirror and decide what is going to make you happy. What would be wrong with just making 60 grand a year telling jokes and like starting a family? You know what, like that's not what I want, but like when I think about that, like what is so wrong with that? Why do you I think that's just an artist thing. Like you can't just be in a band unless you want to be Taylor Swift. I I think some people would look at that as settling. I think in a different sense, it's why don't you just have a career doing something and be happy doing what you love?
Nice. So on that, what is one thing that you would want people to know about what you do?
Like, is this somebody that wants to start doing stand-up comedy, or is this someone who is already in comedy and is kind of at a crossroads?
So for the general listener that doesn't know about stand-up comedy, what would be something that's surprising about it? And two, for somebody that wants to get into it, what would they need to know? If they're like, I don't know if I want to be the Taylor Swift of the comedy scene, but I also, I don't want to be the wedding band singer of the comedy scene. What do I need to do? So two-part question.
Right. So for the average listener, I think, especially when I talk to like my friends or like say I'm just having a couple drinks, I'm just talking to audience members after a show. So many people think that stand-up comedy is like so glamorous. They're like, man, this must be like so awesome, like what you do. Like, man, like this is crazy. And it's like, I'm headlining in Lethbridge, Alberta. Okay, like things are not okay. Um, until you can get to this is such a weird comparison, but so many comedians like wrestling, like WWE. And I feel like a lot of comedians, um, they they resonate with wrestlers because like when wrestlers get to the top, life is good. But everyone that's just like trying to make it, it's just such a struggle. Like I can remember like I can remember, let's say like 7 years ago, jumping on a Greyhound bus to go to some god awful town to open for somebody for $50 because I just needed to get the work and I needed to go out there and do that. Going on the road with like friends or no, even worse, going on the road and they're like, "Hey, this is the comic you're going to go on." And you meet up with this person and they are just the biggest piece of shit you've ever met and you have to spend a full week with somebody who wants you to listen to their comedy album while you're driving 8 hours to Winnipeg. Like blow my brains out. Um, going on tour and getting to a venue and the venue telling you, "Oh, we forgot there was comedy tonight." And now there's people sitting there watching a hockey game and now they're turning off the TVs and you are now forcing stand-up comedy onto people because the person that runs the venue is an idiot and forgot to promote or forgot to do anything. Showing up to your accommodations and you feel like you're going to get bed bugs and you have to share a twin bed with somebody like with another performer that like you don't even know that well, that like people think it's glamorous and like the grind is soul sucking.
Well, that you really sold it. That sounds fabulous to me.
That's the thing, I don't think people realize how toxic the stand-up industry is. um and this by no means is me trying to deter people from getting into comedy. Comedy is for everybody. Come do your thing, but buckle up at the same time because this is not. I mean, it's probably a little bit better now because like when I started comedy, like I would get off stage and some of the more senior comics would be like, "That was shit. You should quit. That's garbage."
Yeah.
And I truthfully wish there was a little bit more of that in today's day and age. Not necessarily like bullying, but like now everybody's high-fiving each other. Oh, go team, go team. No, I think people should know that a bad performance is a bad performance. And now this has created a culture of delusional comics running around thinking that they're professionals. And now this just goes back to the business side of what I deal with, where I'll have comics that are like, "Oh, I'm a pro comic. This is great." And they go to a venue and they charge a pro price of, let's say, $20 to $30 for amateur comics. So when people buy tickets to that show and it sucks, why would they pay $25 to come see some of the best stand up? And I promise you, tell all your listeners, Laugh Lounge Comedy Club has the best comics in Canada, but it is so hard for me to convince. The average person goes to one comedy show a year. So if that one comedy show is they spent $20 on an open micer talking about jerking off for 20 minutes and getting no laughs, why would they spend the $25 to come see the absolute best comedy that you're going to see? Because people just don't know the levels of like what's good and what's bad.
I-
The amount of times that like we're in the Byward market, we get walk-ins, we have a sign outside, people are like, "Oh, comedy," and they walk in and they're like, "Hey, is there a show?" And I was like, "Yes, that's why there's a sign out there." And then they're like, "Well, is it funny?" And I'm like, "No, it's not. We are paying our bills off people bombing every day, every night."
Oh, so then what would you say to somebody who wanted to start to get into it? And then, um, I guess what you said is like, listen to people when they tell you if you're good or not. And if they say you're bad, that doesn't mean you have to quit, right? You just have to get better.
Correct. I think I will give you a top three. Um, the top three I would say is do as many shows as possible. Whatever stage time is available to you, do it. Film your sets. I am the worst for this. I see comics There are some comics that I employ that have such a good work ethic. Every time they walk into my club, they are setting up a camera, even if it's an amateur night and there's 20 people in the crowd, and they're only doing 7 minutes. They are recording that set. They're going to go home. They're going to watch that tape and be like, hey, I've been doing this joke and I've been saying this line. This hasn't been working. I'm going to change it. I'm going to do something else. It's like a sports team. They're like watching tape on themselves and looking at ways to improve. So do as many shows as possible. Film your sets. That's just the work ethic part of it. I would also say you don't have to be a TikTok star, but do not sleep on the business side of things. Be personable. Don't be a dick. Introduce yourself to everybody. When you're on a show and you walk into the room, introduce yourself to everybody. Hi, my name is so and so. Shoot the shit with people. Build connections. And when I say don't sleep on the business side of it, if you're not getting as many quality opportunities as you think you should be getting, make yourself opportunities. That's what I did. I mean, I wasn't getting booked as much as other comics were when I was only a couple years in. So then I started my own monthly show. I believe you and like Alona would have came to that like live on Elgin. And then I wanted even more opportunities. So I created my own comedy festival. And then now I've graduated to a full comedy club that's open every week, multiple shows a week. So be wary of the business side and be vigilant with making sure that you understand that there are too many people just sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring. That's not going to get you anywhere. Go out and just make opportunities for yourself. And for the love of God, be self-aware. It's so hard for so many people to be, and I can comfortably say that is probably my best asset that I have personally. And I would say that's probably the best asset that any comic can have, is being self-aware, knowing what your limitations are, knowing what you're capable of doing. It's one thing to have confidence in yourself and thinking that you can bring yourself to the next level, but having a realistic scope of where you are as far as your career, or where you are as far as the amount of time that you can do on stage, because that is one thing that as a booker I deal with a lot. I have a lot of people. I understand shooting for the stars, but people just wanting to waltz in and being like, I'm a headliner, I should headline, I got to close your club. Well, I don't want to sound like, but back in my day, like we would actually go out there and do guest spots and showcase for clubs. But now everybody's like, nobody wants to put their work boots on anymore, because now people are like, well, I don't want to lose money coming to Ottawa just to showcase. I'm like, then don't come. I have people. I don't need you. So yeah, I think the work ethic, being nice, making connections, um, creating opportunities for yourself if they don't come, and remaining as humble and self-aware as possible. Those would be my my top 3 points.
Awesome. Wow, thank you. So one more question that we ask everybody. We've heard all about your thing, and thank you for that. But what's one thing about you that's interesting that's maybe not your thing?
It's not my thing. Um, yeah, I forgot that this question was on there, and I told myself I was going to put some thought into it, and then I didn't. Okay, I don't know if this is how you answer this kind of question. Kids are not my thing.
Okay.
I don't know if that, I don't know if I should be saying like an activity that's not my thing, but now I'm at the age where everyone is getting married and having kids, and like that has never been even a thought in my life. And I talk about this in my act all the time. My girlfriend came with me in on my last tour to Calgary, and I got off stage and she was like, I have never watched you talk for that long about how much you hate children. And we're at that age now where everyone is getting married and having kids, and by no means necessary do I try and like talk. I'm not like a weird cultist being like, join my no kids cult, like, but it's subscribing to that lifestyle has never really been my thing. So I guess that does kind of qualify as answering that question.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. Just before you leave, can you let people know where they can find you on Instagram, maybe, and where they can find the info on the Laugh Lounge?
Yes. So if you would like to find me, I am Nick Burden with an underscore at the end on Instagram. I will be mostly around here for the next little while. I usually host my Sunday show, Pros and Joes, at Laugh Lounge, every other Sunday. All the info that you need for Laugh Lounge Comedy Club is Laugh Lounge Ottawa. We will have a fancy schmancy brand new website very soon that's under construction. But you can find all of our info on Instagram and Facebook, Laugh Lounge Ottawa, that has all of our links to all of the upcoming shows. You guys unfortunately missed out on like a couple really fun things because we just had our 2-year anniversary and had lots of fun shows. And we just also had the 4th annual Dirty Birds Comedy Festival last weekend. But I don't know how long it takes to get your links out. This weekend we have Marito Lopez, one of Canada's best. The following week we have Edmonton's favorite darling, Drew Bame. And we also have lots of really fun stuff coming up in December. So if anybody has any last minute planning for their staff Christmas party and want to treat their staff to a fun night out, I cannot think of anything more fun than coming and joining us for a couple laughs. All inquiries can be sent to laughlounge613@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate it. You coming and talking to us, and have a good night.
So make sure to check us out. whatsyourthingpod.com. Check us out on Instagram, YouTube, follow us on TikTok. Check us out. We're going to have a blast. What's your thing?
What's your thing?